So I'm Lorraine Nolan. And as you all probably know, there is a lot going on in the United States right now. In many ways in one, and including in the area of gender identity ideology and WDI USA, we try our best to stay up on, all of that's going on and advocate as much as we can, whether it's through amicus briefs for federal court cases, educational events, webinars, so on and so forth. So I'm just going to highlight just a few of the things that we do at WDI USA, and I will begin with the amicus briefs. While the slides are coming up, the first case that I'm going to talk about would be the Olympus Spa briefcase. And it's, well, let me just begin. That's Haven Wilvich. A man named Haven Wilvich called the Olympus Spa in Lynnwood, Washington, to inquire about services. He asked if he would be able to participate as a trans woman. The spa said no. He went on to complain to the Washington State Human Rights Commission. This could have been a ploy to intentionally trap the spa. He is an activist, but we don't know that for sure. What we do know is that women should have the right to spaces that exclude men. So WDI USA decided to submit an amicus brief for a few reasons. The first is to define women and girls. Why? If a man can decide he's a woman, then men would take much needed benefits from women. Additionally, this would contradict current laws against voyeurism and indecent exposure. Voyeurism is defined as viewing, filming, or taking pictures for sexual gratification where privacy is expected and without consent. Women in the spa, sometimes nude, can't be presumed to consent to be viewed by men. Lastly, there is the issue of linguistic destabilization. And to clarify that, the uncritical use of words like transgender or gender identity and expression isn't based on material reality. These words are subjective and imply a fluid nature that will only undermine decades worth of laws that protect women as a sex class. And again, that's Haven Wilvich. If you notice, the spa actually began as a place to honor women, but as a result of pressure, as you can see here, the spa now makes allowances for castrated men. The world calls them trans women, but they're, if they're post-op, they're castrated men. So unfortunately, that took place. The next amicus brief would be for the Westenbrook case. Jalen Westenbrook and other members of the Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority are the plaintiffs. Kappa Kappa Gamma Inc. and Artemis Langford, a man, were the defendants. Do I need to point out Artemis? Okay. Langford was allowed to join the sorority despite the sorority's bylaws stating that new members must be women. This has led to linguistic destabilization and renders the term women meaningless if men are allowed to identify as women. What applies to sororities also applies to lesbian groups. Consequently, men could be included in organizations, dating apps, and meetings reserved for lesbians. The plaintiffs lost at the lower court level and again on appeal, where WDI USA filed an amicus brief. The appellate courts dismissed the appeal, but the plaintiffs have an opportunity to file an amended complaint. Despite the legal setbacks, they are not giving up. One of the major issues we are currently facing in the US is the erosion of Title IX. Originally designed to protect women and girls throughout their educational journeys, Title IX has mostly been associated with school sports, and here's the text. No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. In simple terms, any organization or institution that receives government funding must comply with Title IX. Initially, its aim was to allow for sex-segregated activities with equal opportunity for women and girls as the goal. For instance, women did not have to compete with men for a basketball scholarship because everyone understood that men and boys have a physical advantage in athletics. This allowed schools to form female-only teams and compete solely with other women and girls. However, the new Title IX regulations have changed this. Now, a man who claims to be a woman can join a women's team and win due to his sex-based athletic advantages. This is because the new Title IX rules include discrimination on the basis of gender identity in the definition of sex discrimination. This change is problematic because it makes it impossible to protect women if we cannot recognize the reality of sex. Kara Dansky, our outgoing president, has created an informational webinar to address as many questions as possible about these new changes. Many states have sued the Department of Education, claiming that the new Title IX rules are unlawful because they exceed the department's statutory authority, violate the First Amendment, or are otherwise unlawful. The states that have challenged the ruling include Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Texas, 14 in total. 3 federal courts have now blocked the new rule from taking effect in those 14 states. So there were 14 in total. I mentioned 5 of them, but federal courts have blocked from taking effect in those particular states, not all 50, unfortunately. WDI USA has a state legislative advocacy team, which Lauren Levy coordinates, and she's in the back. From its inception, the team has provided extensive testimony on state bills using accurate sex-based language to support women's sports. We think our testimonies influenced the language that those states use in their Title IX legal briefings. Something that WDI USA likes to do, we like to acknowledge Democrats that fight on the side of women and girls. And the first is U.S. Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia. He was the sole Democrat brave enough to go against the Biden administration's attempt to appoint Sarah Netburn to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. Netburn is known for ruling in favor of a male sex offender who wanted to be transferred to a women's prison. Needless to say, that sex offender claims to be a woman. So thank you to Jon Ossoff. In my state of Connecticut, the Black and Latino Caucus made a similar move. We'll talk more about that tomorrow during my talk on the Black Women's Caucus, but here's a hint. They protected the word mother in one of the state bills, but I'll talk more about that tomorrow. In contrast, we wrote another letter, the Democratic Women's Caucus. But this time things weren't so pleasant. Representative Lois Frankel, along with the Democratic Women's Caucus Vice Chairs Nikema Williams and Teresa Ledger Fernandez, issued a statement commending the Biden administration for reinstating measures to safeguard women from campus sexual harassment and all forms of discrimination. Our chapter definitely supports that. However, they also included the following in their statement. The Democratic Women's Caucus is grateful to President Biden and Education Secretary Cardona for hearing our calls and issuing regulations that will restore and expand protections for survivors, keep women safe on campus, and clarify protections for pregnant and parenting students. And those are indeed pressing concerns for women. Again, WDI USA acknowledges and supports that. However, the subsequent issue is this, the next part of their statement. Next, we look forward to the Biden administration promptly issuing the final Title IX rule on athletics to ensure student athletes do not face discrimination on the basis of their sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. As we all know, gender identity is different from biological sex. We acknowledge that pregnant women require accommodations as students. It is also important to have protections for survivors of campus sexual harassment and assault. However, including gender identity in these protections would allow men to access resources intended for women. WDI USA has proposed a meeting, including Scottish MP Joanna Cherry, to discuss the issue of including gender identity within sex discrimination laws. We proposed that meeting to the Democratic Women's Caucus. However, as of May 17, 2024, caucus ignored our request. In response, WDI USA decided to make our request public. We published a letter and encouraged U.S. signatories to share our statement and write to the Democratic Women's Caucus to express their concerns. Okay, yeah, those are, I read the statement, but apologies, I didn't say forward with the slide, but those are the contrasting messages in their statement. Biden seemingly did an about face saying that his administration does not support surgeries for minors, and we also have a statement on our website about that, his about face. WDI USA will be having our annual convention, our third annual convention in Atlanta, Georgia this year, and I am really excited about that. Dr. Suzanne Veeling, who I'm sure you all know, her and I will be doing actually a whole conference panel with on Black femicide. Rosalind Page, who started the Black Femicide Project, will be there. The D-Trans and D-Cystic Women's Caucus will be having an event, and I'm really, really excited about that. And I hope to see as many of you as possible there. Thank you very much.